Namaste everyone, and today we will be starting with our my third session, and we have another session to go. So today, as we are almost coming to the tail end of our learning sessions, I would like to, as I had already informed you, we will be going through the lesson called body movement, which is a standard 6 chapter. And today we will be focusing more on the methodologies of transacting the chapter. And I'm looking forward to an interactive session where I would be happy to get a lot of inputs from all of you here. Please feel free to share your views, your ideas, and your experiences, because all of us teach the same topic in very many different ways, and we can always enrich one another in the process of sharing our thoughts. So let us start today's session with the chapter body movement. As usual, I will be taking you through the main topics of the lesson, and along the way we will be discussing how we will be progressing from one topic to another, the activities that can be shared with our children, and even formative assessment that we keep doing along with the progress of the chapter, which helps us to understand how far we have been achieving our learning outcomes. So I'll be sharing my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you for that response, sir. So today we'll be doing body movements, a very interesting chapter for children, where we have the contents. Here I have noted them down according to the NCERT textbook. Even if you are following a textbook of some other publication, they would be proceeding along similar lines. So we have the human body and its movements, the ball and the socket joint, pivotal joint, hinge joint, and fixed joints. Certain parts of the human skeleton, like the rib cage, the backbone, the shoulder bones, the pelvic bones, and the skull, we will be focusing a bit on them, though children are also acquainted with the full human skeleton. Then we have a look at another kind of tissue, which is a connective tissue, which is cartilage. And we examine and analyze the kind of movement in different animals. So as far as human beings are concerned, we have a backbone, but there are other animals in the animal kingdom who don't have a backbone. For example, the earthworm, snail, and the cockroach. So that is, they have a different method of locomotion, which we will be taking to our children, and then going on to discuss locomotion and in fish and snake, because both of them are limbless animals and have different modes of locomotion. And a fish lives in water, so we need to have a look at how it moves. And finally, we round up with a section on yoga for better health. So that is the content of the lesson we'll be looking at. So the learning outcomes, whenever we look at a chapter, we always have to design the learning outcomes and proceed accordingly. We also stop and cross-check whether we are achieving, whether our learners are achieving the learning outcomes and we are reaching our objectives. So body movements in this chapter, I have just jotted down a few of them. If you you are very welcome to add to the list. Students will be able to know and understand the different kinds of joints, the role of muscles in movement. They should be able to differentiate between the different joints and their functions. They'll be able to critically analyze movement in other organisms. They will acquire the skill of drawing and labeling diagrams. And above all, they will be able to appreciate the role of movement in conducting day-to-day activities, and also how to keep ourselves in a mobile throughout our lives. So yoga plays a very important role in keeping us not only healthy, but also keeping our joints, muscles, and bones working well. So a few of the learning outcomes here, and then this is an activity which is there in the textbook, and we can use a simple table where we can ask children, we can give them the names of the animals and keep these two columns blank, and we can ask them to fill these columns from their experience of the world around them. So the body part that is used for moving for cows, human beings, snakes, birds, insects, and fish. And how does the animal move? So these are a few of the locomotory, the movements that they can write down about. We can also tell them that about body movements. We can give them an idea of the difference between movement and locomotion, where movement refers to generally moving any part of the body in relation to another part, whereas in case of locomotion, it is changing the, from one location to another. So we can also differentiate between movement and locomotion. And we can ask children to actually sit still for some time in the class. In fact, the lesson can be introduced in that manner. And even when they are sitting still, if they observe carefully, certain parts of their body will show movement. So we can draw attention to all those kind of movements. And also then when they go about their daily activities, for example, when they are writing, when they are speaking, then different parts of their body moves. And we can ask them as to, which part of your body is moving when you are speaking. So ask them to concentrate and feel which part is moving. And we can also draw attention to the fact that movement is a very is a characteristic feature of living organisms. So generally, when we draw differences between the living and the non-living world, one of the common points that we dwell upon is movement. We usually, children will tell us that non-living things cannot move, whereas living things move from one place to another. So from there, we can also ask them about movement in plants and whether they have noted any movement in plants, and if so, when and how. So here we can, though it is body movements in this chapter, we refer to movement in the animal kingdom, we can also tell them about movement in the plant kingdom. So we can ask them to have to collect a few seeds, seeds which are normally available in the kitchen, for example, green gram or chole or any other kind of seed, and soak it and allow it to germinate. And germinating seeds will always have a tiny little root coming out, and then we can ask children to note the direction towards which it grows. And even if we keep the seed upside down, the root will take a curve and move it will show a downward trend of movement. So here, these are the kind of movements that are observed in plants. Of course, plants cannot move from one place to another, but some plants definitely show different kinds of movement. We can also show them or give them examples of some plants whose leaves close after sunset, and flowers which bloom in the evening. So those are all different kinds of movement that is seen in plants. We can talk to them about the movement of the tendrils around a support. So the tendril will grow around the support. The stem will move towards light. So these are a few things that we can ask children to do at home. Keep a potted plant at home near the window. And if they keep it long enough, they will automatically find that all the branches tend to point towards the window. So that's another kind of movement where light is a factor which, influences the movement. So from then on, we can ask them about different examples of movement that they are capable of. So this, as Mala ma'am has told us, instead of having a list of animals, she uses pictures, which is a very good idea. I think we can also try to do that. And after this, here, I would like to draw your attention to something a little different. And it is the theory of multiple intelligence. It was given by Howard Gardner, an American psychologist. So teachers, have you come across this theory?
No, ma'am, I don't know, ma'am. Please tell, ma'am.
The theory, Howard Gardner's theory, have you come up? Okay, so I can get one response where she says that she's not aware of it. Anyone else who has heard about the Howard Gardner's theory?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so let me just tell about it briefly. I would probably like to share a video of one of his interviews, which I will put in the WhatsApp group. I have not added it to my PowerPoint presentation because, it could make it very bulky. So,
Okay,
yeah, so if you are interested, then you could go through the video. I think it would be enlightening for all teachers. So initially and for a long time, we did continue the practice of judging intelligence based on IQ levels, which mainly tested our language and mathematical skills. And Howard Gardner, he kind of differed in his opinion, and he gave his theory of multiple intelligence, which proposes that people are not born with only all people are not born, with the same kind of intelligence. Different people show and have different kinds of intelligence, and also they are not born with all the intelligence they will ever have, which means a lot of it can be cultivated. This theory challenged the traditional notion that there is only a single type of intelligence, and that intelligence is what we always focus on, the cognitive abilities. So he introduced, as you can see here, 8 different kinds of intelligences, and he notes that Gardner went on to say that the linguistic one, and the linguistic verbal, and the mathematical, the logical mathematical, these two are the kind of intelligence that we normally always kind of value in society and also in school. So Gardner suggested that there may be candidates who have different other kinds of intelligence. For example, the theory says that there could be some other children or even adults, in fact, who show visual spatial intelligence, interpersonal, which means intelligence which helps one to communicate with another. So you would have seen people who are very good at public relations and who handle external communications of a company, or to some extent, I think every teacher is having this interpersonal skill, because that is how we can communicate with other individuals, and in our case, it is mostly the children. And then intrapersonal, these are people who have a deeper communication within themselves. There are people who are musically inclined. There are some who learn better bodily and kinesthetic intelligence. So we have our dancers, choreographers, all of them have a high degree of bodily and kinesthetic intelligence. And there are some who are naturalistic. So there are various groups of people who have different kinds of intelligence. And in fact, society becomes richer because of the various kinds of intelligence that different individuals have. And even in our classroom, we do find people we find students with different kinds of intelligence. So now if you think about your own classroom, you will immediately now be able to kind of relate some kind of intelligence with some particular child in your class. Are you able to do that, teachers? There are some children who are very good at music. It could be playing an instrument. It could be, vocal music. They seem to be very good at music. And then there are others who are very good at sports or who learn faster when they are moving around. In fact, this particular chapter, body movement, is going to be very interesting for bodily kinesthetic intelligent people because they can relate to it very easily. So these are the various kinds of intelligence that we have. And as a class, in a classroom, we as teachers should try to cater to the various intelligences that our diverse group of children have, because we always need to remember that our learners are a very heterogeneous group. They are not all going to learn in the same way. I think something alike to this was spoken by Anuradha ma'am also on the very first day when she was telling us about the bark analysis. So here also we have Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence, which as I said, I will be sharing a video about and here I think this picture is something that sums up what we need to keep in mind when we are delivering our lessons, that learning types and needs vary. So here we can see 3 types of students. Now here they have shown the difference by showing different heights. What we need to remember is this is just a figure. Height is not the point of difference that children have. It is the way they think. The picture represents it by showing us height. And if we think that by giving them all equal, delivery of instructions or teaching methodologies, if we go about in the same way, all children will be benefited, then we are not being able to reach out to so many groups. So rather than trying to give everyone an equal kind of attention or the same kind of teaching, we will have to modulate, we will have to keep changing the way we teach so that we can include all of them. So this is basically, this tells us how our approach to teaching should be. So depending on the need and the requirement and the level of the child, we will have to deliver the particular topic. So that was on Howard Gardner and his theory of multiple intelligence. It is also called theory of MI, which is multiple intelligence. And I will be sharing his video and you can read up on him. He had his first book was Frames of Mind, and then he went on to write other books also. In fact, he has multiple intelligence theory in practice, frames of mind. All of these have shaped and changed the way educators across the globe work. So initially, of course, it was the US where it, where it started and generally spread across the whole world. So here again, we have an activity to check movements in the body. So this is again something very simple where every child in the class can participate, where we can have 2 or 3 children standing in the front and we can ask them to move a particular part of the body. And then the rest of the children can fill in the columns by observing and then saying yes, no. So for example, if the neck, does it rotate completely? Then after, if they move the neck after a point of time, as you can see with all our, the demonstration is only up to a particular point. So of course it will be no, for it cannot be rotated completely. It only rotates partly or turns, yes, bends, yes. So you can ask them to move them back and forth and ask them if they can move it in any other way. So yes, and lifting, we cannot, and does not move at all is also no. The neck does move. So similarly, we can have different set of children coming up and moving, say the neck, the wrist, the finger, the knees, the ankles, then toe, back, head, elbow, and arm. And I think in a span of about 15 to 20 minutes, this activity can engage quite a few children. So we have around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Generally, I think we don't have more than 50 people in a classroom. Is there anyone here who caters to a larger classroom where you have a strength of more than 50?
No, ma'am. No.
Okay. So that means that for each one, we can call 5 children. So we'll be almost involving the whole class. So this is another thing, dear teachers, we need to keep in our mind is that am I involving my whole class? Am I involving everyone so that no one feels left out or no one feels that, he or she is not contributing to the learning and teaching process. So definitely in these kind of activities, let us try to, take a quick look at the number of things we have and then call around that many children. So that would help everybody to come up once, and also because there are some children who are very shy and they don't like to come up and say something or do something. And we definitely need to work on their shyness, because as children, some children are shy, some are introverts. Even as adults, so many of us are introverts. We don't like, we are not really open to sharing our views. Whereas there is another group of people who are very, very open about what they feel and what they think. So sometimes even when you don't ask for an opinion, they give an opinion. So it's the same in the classroom. There are a group of children who will always demand our attention because they are always the ones who are talking, asking questions, or in general, occupying a lot of our attention. So we will always we always need to be very careful to keep everybody involved in the class so that the previous activity is an easy one and can involve each child. And also shy children who will not be comfortable doing an activity alone, dear teachers, it is very easy to have a group. Of course, with online learning, groups are difficult, but if all goes well, I think we will be continuing with the offline mode in the coming academic year. And we will be able to have groups of children come up and do some activities. So this one, as Poonima ma'am, I think, had pointed out, is another activity I'm sure many of us would have tried in the classroom, where we tied a scale against the arm. So this is one activity which can take us to the importance of joints. This is another one which the book shows, where we have a ball and we roll a strip of paper into a cylinder and make a small hole in an old rubber or plastic ball, and we push the paper cylinder into it. And then we can have a bowl that we use in a kitchen in which the ball fits. And then we can move it freely and show them a ball and socket joint. I think this is also another activity that many of you have already done. Am I right, teachers? Has anyone tried this activity in the class?
Yes, ma'am, I did, ma'am.
Yes. And how did the children feel, ma'am?
They understood the structure of the ball and socket
Ball and
joint.
so it
Yes,
was
ma'am,
an offline class, ma'am? Was it
Yes,
an
ma'am.
offline?
Yes, ma'am. In offline class only, I saw that.
Yes, yes. So I would request other teachers to try it out because it definitely picks up the interest. And this is one chapter where I found my class very involved in learning, because very often they would stand up, because usually I tell the children, please don't stand up, be in your places, sit straight and listen. Here I had given them the liberty to move around and they enjoyed the chapter very much. And in fact, at the end of it, many children were like, ma'am, we will lift our, we will use our ball and socket joint and write something on the board. So, that was how they were talking. So I think if we, practically demonstrate some of these activities, it would be a very good learning experience for children. The next one is allowing them to understand the hinge joint. So here a small pencil is attached to a cylinder. So generally this cylinder, many children would be using either aluminum foil or cling film in their homes, in their kitchens, and they have a nice cardboard cylinder on which the aluminum foil is wrapped. So some of them have those cylinders, and sometimes even brown paper for covering books is rolled on a cylinder. So we can use such a cylinder and pierce it with a pencil. And if you make a hollow half cylinder from cardboard again, so that it fits into it, as we can see here, there is a hollow half cylinder, then this will give us a range of motion in only one direction. So this is very different compared to the previous one, where there was a bowl in which the whole joint could move totally. There was a 360-degree motion possible. Here it is not so. Here it is only up to a particular, it's a very directional movement. It's not an entire circular movement, as you can see. So this activity is very, very helpful in allowing children to understand how the hinge joint works. So once they do these activities, we can ask children to get the material, and we can give them enough time to get the material, because some of them require a weekend to procure material, because very often we have a lot of parents who are working, and it becomes difficult for them to gather material. So if we give them ample time, they will be coming back to the class with the material, and we can ask them to do. Or if you feel that asking everybody to get all the material becomes overwhelming for them, we can again divide the class into groups, because group activity and peer learning need to be encouraged, so that children don't even understand that they are teaching one another, and they are learning by seeing. So if we give one group, we can ask around 7, depending upon your class strength, you could have groups of either 5 children to 7 children, and ask some of them to bring a bowl, the ball and the cylinder for the ball and socket joint, another group for the hinge joint, and then we could have them demonstrate it, and we could do the explaining and guide the children to understanding about the joint. So next, I have here a full skeleton. Now, whenever we show, and here many of us have in our school laboratories an entire skeleton. So all of us who have a skeleton in the biology lab in our respective schools, for us, it's a very easy job. Children are super excited to go to the bio lab, especially class 6, 7, and 8, because they don't usually get a chance to enter the labs. So if we take them to a round of the lab one day and show them the skeleton, rather than showing them a chart isn't quite as interesting to children as actually seeing the skeleton. So in case you have a skeleton, we can always take them to the lab and have them look at the skeleton and appreciate how the bones are joined, and we can take this chapter in the lab and explain to them thoroughly. For those of us who don't have a skeleton, there is no cause of feeling left out. We have some other ways to deal with that. Okay. Those of us who don't have a skeleton in the lab, we can have a different approach. So here I have just had a diagram where we have the different joints. We can have the pivot joint, the ball and socket joint. Of course, the condylar joint, plane joint, and saddle joint are not discussed in the class 6. And the textbook does ask us to have we can show them pictures of x-rays. It is a very, very easy way to understand the joints. So these pictures are easily available online. And if we can download a few of these images and carry them with us to the class, it would really give children a first-hand view of how our bones appear. So this is a ball and socket joint. I'm just going to quickly go through them. These two are the pivot joints of the neck, where one shows us the neck is straightened. And here, how the neck, because of the pivot joint, we are allowed to move our neck back and forth and also move it to a certain extent. So this is pivot joint. And here we have the hinge joint. This is of the knee. And then the movable joint, the skull. And here is the lower jaw. So this, and we can have children again, in order to understand how the skull works. In order to understand how the skull works, we can few parts to every group. So we can give the skull to one group and they will draw the skull on a big cardboard, and we can give them the size of the cardboard, and if they can draw it on a paper and stick it on the cardboard. Similarly, another group can draw the backbone, one can draw the rib cage. We can give two groups the two hands, and one group the pelvic bones, and again two groups the two legs. And finally, when we have all the pieces together, we can just put them down on the floor and ask children to assemble the skeleton instead of us doing it. Ask them to assemble the skeleton. Another way that children can learn is by drawing it on a chart paper, especially the rib cage and the spinal cord at the back, the vertebral column at the back. And that is one thing children need to understand, how it is a 3D view. So that also we can help them to understand if we allow them to have a cage-like structure, which we make out of paper cutting. So when you have a scale at the back and the paper cutting in the front, which gives a 3D kind of a view, then we can show them how the rib cage is. So for those of us who don't have a ready-made skeleton, we can use, we can ask children to draw different parts and assemble them and make our skeleton. So that will take care of how, learning the different parts of the skeleton. And after that, we can also talk to them about the joints, that this is this joint, that is that joint, because we have already done the activity where they have made the ball and socket joint and the hinge joint. So we can also tell them about fixed joints where the bones don't move in relation to one another. And as Purnima ma'am has already given us the idea of a cap with the skull bones, that can be used even in higher classes, with different regions of the brain. A cap is a very good way to understand which part of the brain is the cortex and so on. So that can also be learned that way. And then for the skeleton, once the skeleton is assembled, we can join it up using thread or some stiff, some ropes or nylon threads or even cotton threads, which are a little thick, and we can hang it up in the class, which will allow children to look at it for some time and get used to the names of the bones and the joints. So that is something that can be easily done with all the children in the class. And then we come here, teachers, I'll be sharing my screen where we have a simple activity which will help children to understand what is the function of bones in our body. So one of the functions at least. Okay, so here, are you able to see my screen, teachers?
Yes, ma'am.
Teachers, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. So here we can ask children to get
Yes, ma'am.
two
Yes, ma'am.
different, thank you for your response, teachers. You can get two different colors of Play-Doh. As you can see in this in this set of pictures, they have one green and one blue. So here in the green one, you can see that basically the body has been divided into a few segments, which becomes easier for children to understand. You have the head, the main, the thorax and the abdomen as one lump of dough, and two longish lumps of dough to be the hand, and two longer ones for the legs. And here we ask children to insert a toothpick into the longer part, and then at the other end we ask them to fix it to this body. We ask them to do the same with the neck, the hands, and the other leg. So this toothpick here will help them to join the limbs to the main frame of the body. And now we have the other dough where we just have these parts where we just kind of press them together and make a body-like structure, and then ask the children to make these two figures stand up. So when they do that, they will see that the green one, which has toothpicks inside, stands up very easily. Whereas this one, as you can see here, will not stand up very well. It will be more wobbly. It will not be as rigid and as as equipped to stand as this one. I hope I'm able to, I'm making myself clear.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So here, dear teachers, we can allow children to, we can ask children, why do you see this kind of difference between these two figures? And what was it that was different between these two? So automatically the attention goes to the toothpick. And then we can compare this toothpick to the bones in our body, adding that this gives structural support to our body, which is one of the key functions of the skeleton. So this is a very simple activity because most children in class 6 still have their Play-Dohs with them. Toothpicks are easily available, Toothpicks are easily available. And this can be easily carried out even in the classroom, or if you are on an online mode, this could be done even at home. But here mainly I'm focusing on offline methods. So I think this could be a very interesting activity for children and a very, very simple yet effective way to understand the role of the skeleton. So the functions of the skeleton: providing shape and support, enabling movement, allows movement, protecting the internal organs, producing blood cells. Now this is something that is that will not come very easily to class 6, but we need to tell them that inside the bone we have a soft tissue called the bone marrow where blood cells are produced. And also here, dear teachers, in body movement, I always find it very, very very appropriate to bring in the components of food here, to link it with the lesson components of food. Because here it says store certain materials until they are needed by the body. Here you talk to them about calcium in the bones. You can talk to them about osteoporosis and what happens when we don't have enough calcium in our system, the importance of having calcium rich food, and how that is necessary for strong bones. So we can bring in the topic of calcium as a mineral, iron as a mineral required to produce blood cells. And also, because we'll be moving on to muscles, we can talk to them about importance of proteins in our diet, and especially as growing children, it is very important for them to build muscles and grow by having proteins. So here you can definitely link those two chapters, nutrition, where they have components of food, and the skeletal system. And going on to the next slide, this one is a very easy activity again, where you can help them to understand about the way the spine is created, or the spine has been designed in not only man, in all vertebrates. So what children need to understand is, if you give them a long hollow pipe and ask them to bend it, or if you ask someone to get a hollow pipe and ask them to bend it, they will tell you that it's not very convenient. So what we can do here instead is ask them to bring some pasta, which is, I'll stop sharing. Ask them to bring some pasta which has holes in the center. Have you seen that pasta, teachers? The one which has holes in it, cylindrical with a hole in it. We can ask them to get some pasta, and also ask them to get Mentos. Please make sure that they don't eat it, because Mentos is definitely, or any other chocolate with a hole in the center. I think peppermint or Minto or something is like that. So we can string the pasta and the circular, I'm sharing my screen. This is it, the pasta. And here we put in a wire, which will be like the spinal cord. And these are the cartilage discs that we put in the in between the two pasta pieces. So this helps them to understand how the spinal cord is inside the vertebral column, and how the vertebral column is made up of different pieces. And these pieces allow the movement of the vertebral column, which helps us to bend backwards, forwards, sideways, and so on. And also, though they don't have it now, we can tell them that this is what also enables nerves to exit from the spinal cord, which is inside. So
Ma'am,
that is,
excuse me, ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
We can use polo instead of
Yes, polo. Yes,
so, ma'am.
right. Right.
Yes, yes.
Instead of Mentos, polo.
Yes,
You are
yes,
very
polo.
right. I was not
Yes,
getting.
ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am, for telling me that, because
Thank
I'm
you,
not
thank
much of a polo and all that kind of a person. Don't have it.
Yes, yes,
So
ma'am.
I just forgot. You are absolutely right. It is polo. We can ask them to bring polo. So this is something that, is pretty easy for children to understand. Do you feel you can easily do this activity?
Yes, definitely, ma'am.
And we can also, kind of hold it up straight. If the wire inside is a little firm, we can give the curvature of the spine and ask children to understand. They can just see their own, feel their own back, which has got the curvatures that we so characteristically have. And this can be easily done. So I feel this particular one and the one which we did before this. Sorry. This one, these two activities are very easy but can be done in the class. And then here I have some again diagrams, pictures, etc., which helps children to understand. We can take printouts of these and download the images, take printouts and fix them in the classroom, because for children to understand the 3D view of the rib cage, it takes some time. So here, this activity actually, dear teachers, we can do it with paper. And here they can make, strips of paper and make this particular rib cage. And it can come up as a 3D model even on a sheet of paper. So this is something that will help them to understand how the rib cage is. And then, as one of our participants did tell us, we move on to the muscles and the cartilage. So here I have an activity which is a very simple model. Ma'am has told us about how she uses balloons. Here, these are very simple rubber bands which are used on popsicle sticks, that, ice cream candy that they have. If they can collect 2 of those and connect it here, either with a hole and a small pin, or by tying these two together, by diagonally, by putting two rubber bands and having insertion points like this. They can have biceps and triceps, and we can just push down on one side and show how it works. So here we will be able to show them how one muscle contracts and the other relaxes, and how muscles work as pairs to bring about movement. So this is one of the activities. And then we go on to the cartilage. Cartilage, of course, is very easy because we can ask them to feel their ear and the bridge of their nose. And the soft, part which is flexible yet firm is called the cartilage. And we can also tell them that the ends of long bones also have cartilage, though we cannot see it. And that's very important because at that time, the bones don't, rub against each other. And therefore, it helps it to maintain the health of the bones. So that is about cartilage. We can tell them that cartilage also is a kind of connective tissue because it connects and protects. And this is what I think ma'am was talking about, how muscles work in pairs. So, and
I did this video in case the balloons exploded before I managed to show you this. I used this using PVC pipes, string, and balloons, Chinese quality. This is a smaller piece of PVC stuck together with long and elastic bands and electric tape. This is nailed to this piece of wood, which is covered in tela. I don't know how to say it in English, with these nails. Now, as you see, when you move this, the things get more, and like this one gets longer, and this one gets less, and this one gets contracted, like this. You see, I think I should manage to show you this in class before I'm not having to show you this video, but still,
okay,
just in case.
so this is how we get to see how the just give me a moment, please. So, as you have already, some of you have already carried out this activity in school using balloons and PVC pipes, or even simple cardboards, cylinders, we can use it. And then we go on to movement in earthworms. Are you able to see my screen? Teachers, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible, ma'am.
Okay. So in earthworm, of course, we need to tell children about how have you taught the movement in earthworm, teachers? Because for me, in my personally, I have found movement in earthworms, snails, cockroach, fish, and snakes. These are very easily taught if we use our ICT tools for this. So videos play a very, very easy role. So in case we are not able to show them videos, then during the monsoon or other times, if you have earthworms, then we can collect a few earthworms, put it on a slide, put a drop of water or a few drops of water and observe it either with a magnifying lens. A magnifying lens does not give a very clear image, but if we put it on a slide and put it under the microscope, we can really get a good view of how the earthworm is moving. So that will help children to understand it very easily. As far as snails are concerned, again, in Chennai during the monsoons, we have like, we can see snails everywhere. So basically what we do is take a snail, put it on a glass piece and observe it from below. So that gives us a very good idea of the muscular foot of the snail. and how it moves. And then when we go on to cockroaches, again, we talk about muscles. We talk about, because cockroaches, the moment we say cockroaches, everybody is like, immediately finds it very, very repulsive. But here they give a very important clue to how the insect world moves. So we can show them a live cockroach with 3 pairs of legs and the 2 pairs of wings. And we can tell children that they use the wings sometimes to fly, though most of the times they are found crawling around. For movement in fish, again, the videos are very helpful for children to understand. In case you are not able to show videos, then diagrams or pictures like this can help them to understand where fish move generally by by curving one half of their body in one direction and the other half in the other direction. So that is a very simple way to explain to them about movement in fish. And then we go on to movement in snakes and so on. But before I go on there, I do have the videos where I have a video which I particularly like for showing movement of snakes. It's a very nice video, and I would like to share it with you. I'm not sharing currently. So supposing we give them one box, okay? So we can give them one box, and okay, so we can give them the starting, and we can say, okay, this is your word 1, and we have a list of across words and a list of words which go down. So the across word, we can probably give them the hint like the set of bones, on the back of the human body. So obviously here they will be writing backbone. We just give one such clue and we leave it to the children to fill up the others. So they can create their, rest of the, we can tell them, we can give them a number like, please make a crossword puzzle with 10 terms. So maybe they will come down and make, say, cartilage. Please excuse my crooked lines because I'm using a pointer. So cartilage, CARTILAGE and E. So this is down. So here they will provide a clue for cartilage and say flexible, found in nose and ear. So likewise, they will create a crossword puzzle. So this could be number 2, sorry. Okay, number 2 here. And they could, we can just leave them with one word. And we can ask them to go through the whole text and construct a crossword puzzle, which will have a lot of, which will have all the terms that are there in a particular chapter. So this is one activity which children will find it very, very, it's something different and they enjoy it because they learn while they are at play. Because solving a crossword puzzle is definitely more interesting than writing question answers. But here, if the child has to answer cartilage, then the child has to know this. Then only the child will be able to design the word cartilage. And that is where this crossword solving becomes a very important and easy and yet interesting method of understanding the topic. So teachers, we can all use a crossword building by different groups. And once they have made the crossword, we can ask them to have the unsolved version and share it among the groups and ask the others to solve it. So here, what we as teachers are doing is we are basically guiding their learning. After teaching the concepts, we just allow them to understand, to recollect, remember, phrase questions for which if we ask a child that please read the chapter. I'm stopping my share. I hope I have made myself clear in what I aim to kind of communicate to you, that when we ask a child that please go home and read the chapter and come back, we'll be having a session on question answers tomorrow. The child is not very interested in that activity because well, who likes to study, But on the other hand, if we say that you please go through the contents of the chapter right now and design a crossword puzzle right now, the child, and especially in a group, they interact better. They learn without feeling the burden of learning, which I think is a very beautiful thing, because children always feel burdened. And if we can remove even one bit of, what the load of the curriculum on them, I think we are going to make them love our subject even a little more. So let us use crossword puzzles to enhance their learning, to apply their thoughts and learnings, and to help build connections among one another, because a group activity always requires children to interact among themselves. So once somebody says, hey, let's put cartilage, then somebody else is going to say, no, not cartilage. Cartilage will not come here. Let us put ball and socket joint. And then they will have an argument as to whether the ball and socket joint should be placed perpendicular or horizontal. So automatically they have to know what is a ball and socket joint. And then somebody might come up with a question as to why. Let us not give ball and socket joint. Let us write shoulder joint and write example. And then, let the other person find out that they have to write ball and socket joint. So it is very interesting to see that children themselves will come up with versions where, they will be using their thinking skills, which we call them higher order thinking skills. They will be using it without understanding that they are using it. So this is definitely a very nice way to allow children to not only build on the concept, but also to have a good time while learning.